Hey, I'm Don Amaro, and this is Through the Fire, a podcast about overcoming adversity, reframing misfortune, and celebrating courage. On this show, you're going to meet some really incredible people who have been through some heavy stuff, but they've come through the other side. And the hope is that you're encouraged and inspired by the words that you hear. My guest today is the drummer and co-founder of JUNO Award-winning band, the Sheepdogs, and also a cancer survivor. Sam Corbett joins me today on Through the Fire. Sam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Don. I appreciate it big time.
My first question off the top is, kind of reading into your story a little bit. Are you still touring with the Sheepdogs?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We did like 90 shows last year.
Right.
And we just have a little bit of a break. We didn't have any shows for a couple months.
Okay.
Here, so, yeah, a bit of downtime, but short answer is yes.
My Winnipeg buddy, Boy Golden, Liam was on the road with you guys for a good chunk of time last year, I think, right?
Oh, yeah, he did almost all of those shows. Well, at least all of our Canadian and American shows he did.
Right.
Yeah, love him, love the band. Everybody in that band is great, like Fontaine, Chris, Austin, various drummers they had. You know?
A bunch of good people.
Yeah, they're great people and great musicians too. So
right. And now you are a father of two little girls?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got Lucy and Sally. Lucy is just turned 4 and Sally is almost 2.
Okay, yeah. I've got 3 kids. I always find a way to bring my kids into these conversations because they're a big part of our world, obviously. And I got 3. I got a 11-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So I know the plight of musician and family and juggling all that stuff. It's crazy.
It's tough for sure. I mean, like I said, all these shows last year, and so it's a lot of time away from home. It's tough for me. It's tough for them. It's tough for my partner too. But we're still trying to figure out the best way to do it. But and making it feel like I'm still connected to them day to day.
Yeah.
But it's tough for sure.
Probably your 4-year-old. Is there any sort of musical inklings already happening there?
Well, she's like writing songs all the time. They're just very stream of conscious, whatever she's looking at right now. But there, we have a little drum kit we gave her for her 3rd birthday that they both like to play on. Yeah. They like to kind of mess around on the piano. We have all kinds of instruments around here. We got little xylophone for them, some recorders, a bunch of percussion they can play on. We just kind of want to expose them to a lot of different instruments and of course, then they can choose whichever one they like.
Yeah, it's funny because when you say that stream of consciousness, my 7-year-old is very much like that. She's constantly, making up songs off the top of her head. And sometimes I'm like, that's pretty good. And making notes for myself.
Yeah, I would say Lucy's maybe not at the pretty good stage yet, but,
Yeah, it's part of the process.
But I like
part
it.
of the process. Yeah. You're here today because there's a lot of new journey in your world. But this show being called Through the Fire, obviously I want to get into some of that stuff. And, being the drummer with the Sheepdogs and somebody who's been very busy in that life, things really took a turn for the worse for you about 5 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was in 2018. My wife was pregnant with our first child, Lucy, about 4 or 5 months pregnant. And yeah, I just felt like a strange lump. I went to get it checked out, and it turns out it was testicular cancer. When I first got the diagnosis, nobody was sure. The doctors weren't sure if it had spread to where and how long I had it. Luckily, I was pretty lucky in the whole, it had spread to my lymph nodes, so I had to have surgery. I had to have radiation treatment. And, luckily testicular cancer has a very high survival rate, 5-year survival rate. Having said that, though, it was still, a very stressful time, a lot going on. I don't necessarily want to use the word traumatic, but it probably was to a certain degree. It was a big change in my life. My life had been, I don't want to say totally carefree to that point, but I had not had to deal with anything nearly as serious as this before.
Right. And your wife, you said she was pregnant with your first child. I'm just imagining when you say probably traumatic, I bet she would absolutely use the word traumatic.
the first thought that popped in my mind is like, what if I'm not around for when my kid is born? Or, what if I make it that far, but I'm not around long enough for them to remember who I am, It
Yeah.
was something that weighed very heavy on my mind, certainly.
I can only imagine, the strife and the stress of that. And at the same time, knowing full well that part of the journey is trying to be less stressful and trying to find ways to, clear your mind and think happy and healthy thoughts as best you can. In the midst of that, were you trying to practice some of that stuff to kind of find your way mentally through those problems?
I look back at that time, especially during my treatment, and I think I could have been doing a little bit better of a job of, maybe trying to be mindful and not just like watching TV all day or going on Twitter or something like that. Not that those things are bad in and of themselves, but you don't want to be doing it all day, obviously, especially if you're sick and, can't work and that kind of thing. For me, it kind of led to a bit of a worse mind state. But certainly on the other side of it, after I was done my treatment and I was starting to feel better, I started to get a lot more into mindfulness and meditation specifically, just through a couple different apps on my phone at first. But that's something that's become a definite part of my life. And I don't know that it would have been had I not had to, had the experience of going through the treatment and stuff.
There's something that happens for me when I go through these phases of like, when life just forces you to slow down, for me, it's felt like, okay, I need to slow down inside and outside. I'm imagining it was challenging because being a musician and touring and playing and having to bow out of some tours, I think, right? If that's what happened in that season, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
That must have led to some really stressful times internally because you're wanting to get out and do that, but your body and your mind, everything's saying you can't.
Totally. Well, like when I first got my diagnosis, I had to have surgery, like I said, and that was going to be, I think it was like 10 days or 2 weeks after when I first found out about it. Before then, we had this mini tour in Europe we were supposed to do where we flew out and played these 2 festivals and then played like a week of shows in England. But I didn't want to let the band down, certainly, or anything like that. And so I wanted to still do that tour. And so we ended up figuring out a way that we flew to Europe from Canada, did 2 shows, and then flew back on like the Sunday, and I had my surgery on the Tuesday, right? So I obviously like did not want to, that's not how most people do it, I don't think.
Right.
And then later on, when I had to do my treatment, I realized that I was going to have to miss a couple of Sheepdogs tours unless I wanted to, do the treatment after my daughter was born, which I knew was a bad idea. So I had these 2 Sheepdogs tours, and initially it was really, really hard for me to bow out of those tours because I'm a founding member. We started the band almost 20 years ago now, and I'd never missed a show. And so it was, I don't know, it just felt really hard to not do my job, I guess. I think that's something a lot of people who are diagnosed with cancer experience. I know that's something that the people at Movember talk about a lot, is that a lot of people, they feel like they're letting people down, I guess, maybe in a way that they can't do their work. And I certainly felt that. In fact, I was going to do a US tour with the band and then back out of the Europe tour. And I was like, I felt pretty good about that. I'll still get my treatment in a reasonable time. And then I started thinking about it. And I was just like, what the hell are you doing, man? Why aren't you getting the treatment as soon as you can? Like, this would have delayed it by about a month. And, maybe that wouldn't have changed anything at all, but it definitely could have. So I really had to take a long look in the mirror and realize that my health and, being around and healthy for my daughters was the most important thing. And I really had to put my career on pause. But that was hard. It's easier said than done.
There's 2 things that come to mind as you're talking. First one is there's something in your disposition or in this healthy attitude of like, we'll figure it out. Where does that come from for you?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I really don't think I was always that way. In fact, I know I wasn't. I definitely feel like when I was younger, my teens, early 20s, maybe even late 20s, early 30s, I don't know. I felt like I just really got frustrated very easily, and I had a very tough time hiding it from those around me. You could probably ask my bandmates about that. But I don't know. And, I definitely still feel like that sometimes, and everybody does. I think this experience really gave me a lot of perspective as far as like what's really important. And,
Mm.
maybe it lent me a little bit of that kind of don't sweat the small stuff. Um, it definitely has changed the way I react to other stressors in my life. Um, like something with the band, if something's not going well, like recording a song or something like that, it definitely has given me the ability to, maybe not get as frustrated. And I don't even really think that that's a conscious decision for me to do that. It's something that happens subconsciously, but maybe it's just a part of growing older as well.
You're also a father, which also teaches you immense amounts of patience and perseverance. I hate that I'm about to say this, but they're our greatest teachers, aren't they?
It's true. Yeah, I definitely, going into having kids, I definitely felt like I was ready. Me and my partner were in our mid-30s, but it's just changed my whole life. And, I can't imagine my life without them, right? I don't know what I would be like now, but you're right. I know that I would be less patient too. It's hard to
Right.
separate the two things, in my life, like having kids and the cancer, because they, happen at the same time. So,
Totally.
it's probably a bit of both.
I know also when you were kind of in the midst of that, what I read about what you went through in that season, because you couldn't play drums, you started picking up other instruments and decided to try to make a go at this solo career path as well, in tandem with Sheepdogs.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you're right. I did try to, being who I am, like I said, I had a tough time like putting my work aside. So after one of my first days of treatments, I was like, okay, I'm going to go play some drums. And I played for about 15 minutes, and then I had to have a 2-hour nap. So it kind of gives you an idea of the kind of toll the treatment takes on you. But what I found that I could do, because I really wanted to kind of maintain a connection to music during that time. So what I would do is I would start playing the piano. And what I started doing was just kind of playing songs that I knew. And then that sort of morphed into me like writing some chord changes and melodies. I didn't have lyrics to them yet, so it just seemed like kind of,
Hmm.
I don't know, interesting things that I was writing, I guess. And interesting enough to me. I'd tried to write music before, and I had written some songs, but never very seriously. And then as we started touring again on the road, I would start writing lyrics to these songs. And I realized that a lot of the songs were about, my treatment, the process of having cancer and becoming a father. Those lyrics just kind of seemed to like, I don't know, naturally come out of me.
Mm.
And so that was 2019, I guess, when I started writing the songs, 2018, 2019. Then we started like a really busy Sheepdogs time period, right? So I just kind of set the songs aside and didn't really do anything with them. Uh, Finally kind of got the courage to head into the studio and try to record them. And I didn't know if they were going to be released or not. I thought it'd be nice to just record them and say I did that. And then the pandemic hit, right? So all of a sudden you can't really go into the studio anymore. So I recorded these songs over 2020, 2021. By the time I had finished them recording. And also it takes a long time to turn your recordings into an actual physical vinyl. These days, that was one of the supply chain issues that was really affected musicians, is the
Totally.
backlog for vinyl is like
Yeah,
6 months, 9 months, 12 months, I've heard sometimes. So
it's crazy. Yeah.
by the time I finished the album, realized it was something I wanted to release, and then finally got it as a physical vinyl copy. All of a sudden, the Sheepdogs were really busy again.
Mm.
We have a little bit of downtime here, and I realized that this would be a good time to release my own music under. It's not under my name; it's under the name Nutana, but it is sort of my solo side project. I'm still in the Sheepdogs, like you said before. I'm still touring with them. I'm very happy to have that career, and I love being in the Sheepdogs. But this is just something else that I want to explore, and I'm really glad I did.
We're going to take a quick break. More with Sam Corbett of the Sheepdogs in just a moment. Fatherhood, battling cancer, and then a pandemic kind of right around the corner of all that too. Just like this triple whammy of hectic stuff. Good on you for powering through and digging deep when you had to, as both a father, a musician, and somebody who's defeated cancer.
Yeah, I'm sure one thing you can appreciate as well is that one sort of silver lining to the pandemic for me anyway was that the Sheepdogs, we played like 5 shows maybe in 2020 and like 20 shows in 2021. So I was able to spend a lot more time at home with my girls, right? Like,
Right.
at the time, Lucy was like kind of 1, 2, and Sally was just being born, right? So that was a definite upside for me personally to a time that was really challenging for a lot of people. And it was challenging as well for us, certainly as a band. Like I said, we couldn't play any shows. And as most people know, you don't really make a lot of money from album sales or streaming these days. So you really need to play live to get some income happening. So it was a challenge for sure.
I often say too that the pandemic was, I can't really call it a blessing. It's got to be careful with the way I word this because, nobody wanted the pandemic to happen. But for me, it did allow me to be full-time dad for quite a while. And it was a really beautiful gift of time to be with my family. And I had invested so much time and effort into my career at that point in time that slowing down it didn't affect me in the negative way that so many other musicians here in Canada and across the world were affected financially. I was able to kind of take that breather. Again, I know that that's not a very common story.
Yeah, I think we were very lucky in that sense too. We're sort of had finished our 1 album cycle, and we were about to record a new album. So in April 2020, we were supposed to fly to Portland and record. A great opportunity to record with a guy there. And obviously that didn't end up happening, and that opportunity went away. So it wasn't like, we were completely unaffected. We also were supposed to open up for the Black Keys on a tour in Canada, which would have been really great. And again, that opportunity kind of never really presented itself again. So we did have things that we really were excited to do that we weren't able to do. But that's nothing compared to someone like an artist, like you said, who's just kind of becoming established and just starting to get a little bit of momentum going. And then, if they release their album on, March 23rd, 2020 or something like that, can't tour support.
Yeah.
It would be pretty devastating. And it was certainly for a lot of artists. Yeah.
Yeah. The song "You Belong," your first single off the new project. What's that about?
Well, like I said, a lot of the album is about my cancer treatment and becoming a father and stuff. This song is a little bit different. It's sort of about the idea of like imposter syndrome. I think I know that a lot of musicians I talk to or read about, and I think probably a lot of successful people in general, get kind of a sense that, maybe they don't deserve their success, that they got lucky, or, we certainly got a very lucky break in the Sheepdogs in the Rolling Stone contest in 2011. So I think a lot of people feel like, maybe they don't deserve their success, or they're not really doing what they're meant to be doing. And so this song is sort of about that, like, or I guess it's my statement to the contrary. It's sort of about myself, like feeling like, I do belong to, in the music business and being a musician. And, that's what it's about to me. I tried to, with all the songs in the album, I tried to keep the lyrics like relatively vague. So if someone else had a different interpretation to those lyrics, I would love that. And I would love to hear about that. But that's what it's about to me. I'm really happy with how the song turned out. And I think it's a good representation of what I was trying to say and the style of music I would like to make.
Hopefully it's not risky of me to say, but it felt like a deep Eagles cut to me.
Hey, I love the Eagles. I know the Eagles get a really bad rap, basically dating back to Big Lebowski, right? Because the dude hates the Eagles, right? And I think after that, I was just like, yeah, I hate the Eagles, man. I know. Well, yeah, after the movie though, I was like, yeah, I hate the Eagles too. And then I started listening to like hearing some more of their songs on the radio. I was like, I think I actually kind of like the Eagles. And there's a great documentary about them a couple years ago that I watched on Netflix. That's after I watched that, I was like, these guys are awesome. They're amazing musicians and songwriters and singers especially. And I'm not ashamed to say that I love the Eagles. So I would take that comparison any day.
Yeah, no, it's great, man. Really, really good stuff. What does the next chapter look like for you from here?
Well, I have the rest of the album is coming out on April 7th. So it's a bunch of originals. Like I said, a lot of it to do with my treatment and being a father. It's got a couple of covers as well. I do a version of Codyne by Buffy St. Marie from her debut album. I had this idea to kind of do a country rock version of it. And Buffy is like a huge inspiration just her career and, the success she's had is just, mind boggling, right? Like she's won an Academy Award and she's known all over the world and she's this amazing singer-songwriter. We've been actually lucky enough to play with her. We actually played with her in Winnipeg at the Forks one time. And we met her and she was just very gracious and kind. And I don't know, I just really think she's amazing. So I was very thrilled to be able to do this cover on the record. Cool. As well.
I know you did 2 covers, right?
That's right. The other one is, the band Tame Impala. This Australian band is kind of more so this one guy, though. It's called 'Cause I'm a Man. And it's kind of him like, it's like written to his girlfriend, basically explaining like, I know I'm a screw up. I'm sorry. I can't help it. It's the way I am kind of thing. And I thought it'd be fun to do like this, a lot of the same lyrics, but from the woman's perspective. So it's called He's a Man. And it has a bit of a country rock, country funk type of vibe to it. So maybe it has a bit of a Stand By Your Man type of sentiment to it.
Interesting.
And I actually got my wife, Ashley, to sing it as well, just because we really, really liked the original when it came out. And it was like a really big song for us. So I thought it'd be cool to include a version of it with her singing on it. And she helped me kind of rework the lyrics as well a bit.
Cool.
So I also thought it'd be really cool to have something to show to our kids later, like, hey, this is a song that mom and dad worked on.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's something I really want to be a part of the album as well.
Well, I definitely want to take a listen to both of those tunes and kind of compare them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I definitely, so much of the album is so personal for me that I think I needed to, like, include like some covers as like a bit of a breather or something from me, like, pouring my heart out, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I can appreciate that for sure. So, Sam, also, the Sheepdogs are up for a JUNO this year, a big one with some big contenders in the category. How you guys feeling about this?
Well, you never know. We're up against Nickelback, which is obviously a huge rock band, and they're also getting the JUNO Lifetime Achievement Award at the JUNOs, so you never know. That could sway some voters as well. It's definitely a cliche, but it is an honor to be nominated.
I'm betting also, after being through what you've been through, I think there's some... Not that you need validation from awards or anything like that. I think it's a nice pat on the back, but I think getting those is, my friend of mine always said, it's a nice shot in the arm. So I feel like after being through what you've been through, that's probably a nice shot in the arm.
Yeah, one of the first things I did after I did my treatment in 2018, we went to the JUNOs in 2019. That was one of my first things back with the Sheepdogs, and just being there, we were nominated again that year. Just being there it felt really good. And then, of course, the JUNOs 2020 were supposed to be in Saskatoon. We were supposed to like play at a function for that and present an award. They got canceled on the Thursday night due to COVID, of course.
Right. Yeah.
This is our first time being back, so we're going to enjoy ourselves, I think.
Well, I'm rooting for you, brother. Sam, thanks so much for sharing some of your story with us here on Through the Fire. We're so grateful for you, for the time that you're taking here, but also just the fight in you to do what you do, and to have beaten cancer. I'm not going to mince words. I think, obviously you've had help with many hands and doctors along the way, but truly I think a lot of the times what we don't talk about when somebody gets through that is, I think there's a part of it that's the spirit of the person that ultimately gets through that. And I appreciate you and your spirit fighting through that and being here with us today. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, I will add that, like, it was a very challenging experience at the time, but looking back on it now that it's been about 5 years and I'm still cancer-free, it's hard not to see it as a positive experience in a lot of ways, just for the growth I've been able to see in myself and the new perspective it gave me. So yeah, with testicular cancer and many other kinds of cancer, breast cancer, it's important to do self-checkups. So I would definitely encourage everyone listening to do that as well.
Good reminder, Sam. Because
I noticed the lump myself. I just noticed it in the shower and, did something about it right away, which is very important as well.
I think going out on those words is really important, man.
And I really appreciate you so much for having me, man. It's really awesome to be able to chat with you here. And yeah, I appreciate the support and the kind words. Thanks so much, Don. Appreciate it.
Please make sure to check out Sam's new album, Nutana, wherever you get your music. On our next episode, we're going to remember a good friend, my pal, Vince Fontaine, who you'll remember from Indian City and Eagle and Hawk. We'll be joined in conversation with his daughter, Gabrielle Fontaine, and his longtime bandmate, Jay Bodner. Please join us for the next one. As I always say, it takes a village to run things here at Through the Fire, and I want to thank my village, executive producer Sarah Burke, administrators Lori Brown and Alan Greyeyes, video and audio design by Chris Gaudry and his team at 44 Films, Feisty Creative for their design work, social media support by Johnson Design Company, and last but far from least, I want to thank our technical producers, Matt Kundle and Evan Serminski from the Sound Off Media Company. I look forward to sharing more great conversations just like this one on the next Through the Fire. You see the light.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.